Hello, guys, and welcome to the podcast. You'll know me at this stage. If you're not, my name is Andy. I'm the clinical lead here at ReadyCare. And in this week's session, what we're going to do is something a little bit different. So, we've changed the format a little bit in that it's usually just me rambling about, giving out about all things diabetes and obviously teaching bits and pieces as we go. The structure is going to change a little bit. So, what we're going to do is more patient and doctor interviews. And also, we're going to do a session once a month with Chloe, where we'll talk about neuroscience and habits, how habits form, how to manage a slip up, how to manage meals out when you feel under pressure, all that kind of neuro. Chloe's brilliant at all that sort of neuroscience type stuff. She really is a super addition to our team, and a great coach as well. The other thing we're going to be doing is I'm going to do a session on back to basics once a month. So sometimes we can get caught up in the ins and outs of sweeteners and insulin resistance and cancer and Alzheimer's and bits and pieces like that, which is lovely to learn about as well. And we forget that there's new people joining the program all the time. And it's really important to do a quick 15-20 minute session where we cover all of the basics. And that's what we're going to do today. So with that, I'm going to cover the basics of type 2 diabetes, what foods you should be eating, what foods you should be avoiding, roughly how it works, what your chances are of putting it into remission, and so on. At the end, I'm going to go through the 5 or 6 main points that I covered in the session, just so you have a kind of a synopsis or a little summary. If at any point you have a question, if you just want to say hello, pop it into the comments. So just post the comments on the video. Before I forget to say it, please do subscribe. It helps us more than you think. Subscribe button is here, and the bell notification button over there underneath the video you're watching at the moment will help you get a notification. If you click that bell, you'll be notified when we go live, which is every Thursday at 7:30. But I also do a session on the Chloe and myself do sessions on the Thursday mornings as well, which cover loads of different topics outside of diabetes. Okay, let's jump into it for a second. So if we look at the prevalence of type 2 diabetes, I saw a stat there recently. This is back to 2014. We're talking about 23, 24 million. I saw a stat recently for the States that said approximately 48% of the country, the USA, are either pre-diabetic or diabetic, which is staggering. Almost half of the population. So with this current trajectory, unless something changes in a major way, we're on a pathway to being at a point as humans for the first time ever in human history that it will be unusual not to be pre-diabetic or diabetic. That's literally where we're heading. It's going to be 50, 60, 70% pre or type 2 diabetic, which is just amazing, especially when we consider that this is a lifestyle related disease that we never needs to happen in the first place. But of course did because we followed a high carb diet under the public health guidelines that we were given, but that's another story. So we're talking, a good proportion of the population, at least 40%. There's probably the stats are probably somewhere near that in Ireland as well. I can't imagine, and the UK. I can't imagine they're too much different. So an interesting stat is if you look at the people who have diabetes and the amount who are on medication, the numbers over 95%. So over 95% of people with diabetes go on medication. Now, the reason this is interesting is because if true healthcare was medicating people who are on diabetes, which is the current paradigm, then you would see the numbers decreasing. But the numbers are increasing at a steady pace. So more people are going on medication and more people are getting sicker. Another kind of worrying stat I heard recently, or fact I heard recently, was that by the time somebody has their foot amputated, where things have gone really, really bad, the average amount of medications that person are on, if you were to take a guess at that, you would say, well, they probably haven't taken any medications if their blood sugar levels are so high and it's causing that much small blood vessel damage that their feet get amputated. The average number of medications a patient is on when they have their foot amputated is 8. They're on 8 diabetic medications. They have had all the medications thrown at them. And the point I'm trying to illustrate here is that using a pharmacological agent or a medication to treat the symptoms of type 2 diabetes, which are high blood sugar levels, does not address the root cause, does not reverse diabetes, and does not put it in remission. And this is why. Because type 2 diabetes is essentially carbohydrate intolerance. Now, this is a point that I would just love, absolutely love for people to pay massive attention to. If you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, please just take in this point because it's so crucial. Type 2 diabetes is literally carbohydrate intolerance. So your pancreas has either stopped or is not making enough insulin and you have to go on diabetic medications to get your blood sugar levels down. Now, the reason your pancreas has stopped working on, 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 5,000 might be like an autoimmune condition. Type 1 diabetes actually is a good example. But 1 in 1,000 of type 2 diabetic patients, it might be something totally different, might be nothing to do with your diet. But the vast majority of times of cases, vast majority, 499 times out of 500, type 2 diabetes happens because the pancreas gets overwhelmed from making insulin, which is the hormone it makes to lower your blood sugar levels, and the pancreas kind of breaks and it says, I'm on holidays. Worst case scenario, it says, I'm completely shot. If you've been diabetic for 15, 20 years or longer, there's a lot of damage done to what are known as the beta islet cells in the pancreas. So what I'm trying to explain here is that what happens in type 2 diabetes is you eat carbohydrates, and when you do, and or sugar, and by the way, carbohydrate and sugar, for all intents and purposes, are the same thing. Chains of carbohydrates are chains of sugar holding hands. When the bile gets them in the stomach, they break down to sugar. So whether you eat a bowl of cornflakes, a bowl of porridge, or drink a can and a half of Coke, or eat 2 cream eggs, your body doesn't really see all that much of a difference. The end result is lots of sugar in the blood. So if we look at type 2 diabetes as carbohydrate intolerance, so you eat carbohydrates or sugar, your blood sugar levels go high, it causes small blood vessel damage that to your brain, your eyes, your kidneys, your feet, your liver, your pancreas, all around the body, damaging inflammation to the heart, compared to somebody who eats carbohydrates and their blood sugar levels stay relatively in range, like a non-diabetic. They go to kind of 5 or 6 would be the highest they would go. We can then understand why we would call type 2 diabetes carbohydrate intolerance. Now, if you went to your doctor, and I want you to imagine this situation, and your doctor said, what you have, Mary or John or Paul, is you have carbohydrate allergy. So you're kind of allergic to carbohydrates. Every time you eat them, your blood sugars will go through the roof, and it could cause long-lasting small blood vessel damage in your heart and your eyes. What I want you to do is pay little or no attention to your diet, and I want you to take medication when your blood sugar levels go high from carbohydrate allergy. What would the question you be ask? What question would you ask? The question I would ask if I was a patient in that scenario would be, should I not eat less of those carbs, doc? Should I not eat less carbohydrate and processed carbs and sugar? And I use that as a silly kind of example because that is exactly the situation that we're in as diabetics. No, the guidelines over the last number of years, in case you're wondering, is this fella mad telling me to eat less carbs for my diabetes? This is the American Diabetes Association, one of the world's leading so-called experts in type 2 diabetes. And this is their nutrition therapy for adults with diabetes or pre-diabetes, their consensus report. And basically the upshot of this, what they found is that reducing overall carbohydrate intake, not low fat, not low calorie diet, not exercising more, not eating less, not controlling your portion sizes. When they looked at all of the literature, reducing your overall carbs for individuals with diabetes has demonstrated the most evidence for improving glycemia. So glycemia is just your blood sugar levels, your glycemic control or blood sugar control. So they're now advocating that people do low carb diets for diabetes. Up until a couple of years ago, that wasn't considered a good idea. The science wasn't understood, or at least there wasn't enough literature to indicate that that would be a good idea. Now there is. So again, what happens with type 2 diabetes, bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, all of these boil down to sugar in the blood. And this is not only for type 2 diabetes. This happens with somebody who's not diabetic. You'll get small blood vessel damage as well. It'll just be far less if your pancreas can produce enough insulin and keep it under control. But ultimately, this happens for everyone. You get small blood vessel damage in your eyes, poor wound healing in your feet, ulcers in your feet, amputations for that reason, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, high blood pressure, dyslipidemia, which is high levels of harmful cholesterol, PCOS, fatty liver. All of these are caused by carbohydrate metabolism dysfunction. So when we start to understand, and this is a key point that I always want to get across to people, that all dietary carbohydrate is metabolized as sugar. So, and I say that again because this is just gold if you're diabetic and if you're listening to this. All dietary carbohydrate that is digestible, so I'm not talking about fiber, is metabolized as blood glucose. So when someone tells you, oh, porridge is healthy, you say, well, isn't it carbohydrate? And isn't dietary carbohydrate metabolized as glucose in the blood? So how could it be healthy to eat the equivalent of 14 spoons of sugar in a bowl just because the old paradigm said porridge is healthy and it's slow releasing carbohydrate and it's even good if you've diabetes? If you want to check this out for yourself, use a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, or even your finger prick monitor. Have scrambled eggs in the morning, check your blood sugar levels 2 hours later. One day over the next couple of weeks, have a bowl of porridge and check your blood sugar levels an hour later and see what the difference is. Be your own doctor. Don't listen to the guidelines I said that we used to always consider um, porridge healthy, therefore porridge is healthy. That's known as eminence based medicine or eminence based advice, just meaning appealing to authority. So saying, well, they always said porridge is healthy in the World Health Organization, and quoting all of these kind of outdated sources of advice. They say that porridge is good, therefore porridge is good. I promise you the science has changed. It is not good to eat oatmeal, brown or white bread, potatoes, and brown or white rice. Any of those are ultimately going to end up as sugar in your blood. So the key to lowering your blood sugar levels is understanding how that food breaks down in your body. So we know now dietary carbohydrates, so refined carbs like bread, rice, pasta, cereal, frozen pizzas, and look, a little bit of this stuff. Everyone's going to eat a little bit of this stuff. I I lecture, I don't lecture, I teach this sort of stuff and coach my patients around this sort of stuff all the time, all day, every day. I a day doesn't go by in my life where I'm not talking about carbs, even if it's the people who don't want to listen about it. Yet yesterday morning I had a scone and a cappuccino because it just bloody felt like it. I knew it was doing me damage, but there's an element of that that's okay. But if we're going all day, every day, having porridge, rice, pasta, cereals, and worse again, thinking that they're good, it traps us in this vicious cycle of high blood sugar levels, low blood sugar levels, then you're hungry. High blood sugar levels, low blood sugar levels, then you're hungry and craving and never full. That's been the life that we've all lived with these guidelines that have said eat loads of carbohydrates indiscriminately once they're low in calories. It traps you in this vicious cycle of blood glucose dysregulation and kind of perpetual hunger. I remember even going back as far as 8 or 9 years ago, I remember thinking, and bizarrely, kind of nearly oddly priding myself on having a huge appetite. I used to say, I have such a big appetite. My wife used to say, he's such a big appetite, almost as if it was some badge of honor. And it was actually not something I should have been proud of. It was just, I was eating a lot of carbohydrate and sugar. I was exercising a lot, but I was constantly, my blood sugar levels were going low. I would guess, and I had the signs of being pre-diabetic because I'd be sleepy in the afternoon. My energy levels would be up and down. I'd be staring at the computer inside and working a previous job. I've been more or less keto since I started with Readycare, 8 years now. But I would eat carbohydrates all the time. And I'd find myself at like half 11, 12 o'clock at night going, yeah, I'm kind of hungry. So I'm going to go downstairs and have a bowl of crunchy nut cornflakes or two of them. And just constantly eating sugar and carbohydrate all the time. And going from that to getting control of my blood sugar levels by eating the blue and green foods here, the proteins and fats. And now I would often get up, have a black coffee, and then realize, God, it's 1 o'clock and I haven't eaten. I would often have my dinner at 6 o'clock and just never think about food again till the next day, which is just because your metabolism changes. And again, anyone who's experienced a low carb diet will attest to that as well. Okay. So this is just looking at the difference of some of the kind of typical foods that we eat that people will espouse as being great. Fruit and fiber is good for you because it's got fiber in it. It's not. Roughly 14 spoons of sugar in your blood. Cornflakes are low in calories. They're only 80 calories if you have them with fat-free milk. That's great, but those calories are going to convert to sugar in the blood and the equivalent of about 17 spoons of sugar. Porridge, roughly 14 spoons of sugar. And Weetabix about 10. Now, I want to be really clear on this because I've been misquoted on this before. He said there's 14 spoons of sugar in porridge, and I looked and there's none. There is no actual sugar in porridge. There's a very small amount in cornflakes and fruit and fiber. But because of the way dietary carbohydrate is metabolized, it converts to the equivalent amount of sugar in the blood. So basically, whether you have half a bag of jellies or 2 donuts or a bowl of cornflakes or porridge, the end result is roughly the same. That's the important part. And again, these are the sort of teaspoons of sugar equivalent of things like rice, potatoes, bananas, all that sort of stuff. Foods that we previously would have considered to be good. Very, very high amounts of sugar end up in your blood. So what are we left with? What foods should we eat more of? What foods will bring us to optimal health? Get us to a point that we have lost lots of weight, our bloods are brilliant, we feel great, we've kind of boundless energy, and we stop having these cravings. So you want to fuel your body on, bizarrely enough, like I always say, nature seems to have had a plan. Meats, fish, seafood, full fat cheese, never low fat. If you think low fat cheese will help you lose weight, just look at the shopping trolley of someone who's struggling with their weight, and you almost every time you will see Pringles and crisps and breads and rice and pasta and frozen pizzas, low fat milk, low fat cheese, low fat yogurt. Low fat foods do not make you low fat. The inference with something low fat in diet is that it's lower in calories, therefore it should help you lose weight. But that idea and that notion has failed us miserably over the last 30 or 40 years as a national eating strategy. We are a nation of 60% of the country are in certain age categories are either overweight or obese, and we're buying low-fat products to beat the band. So meat, fish, seafood, full-fat cheese, full-fat yogurt. Ideally, you want your yogurts to be full-fat Greek yogurt that's not flavored, that has less than about 5 grams of carbs per 100 grams of yogurt. Real butter, like Kerrygold or creamery butters, never the kind of cholesterol-lowering butters, because they do lower your cholesterol, but you mightn't necessarily want to lower your cholesterol. That's a whole nother talk that I'll do for you another time. Eggs, again, eat as many eggs as you want. The idea that your dietary intake of cholesterol would somehow adversely affect your blood serum cholesterol levels is incorrect. You can eat as many eggs as you want. If you want your cholesterol levels to go in the right direction, eat more eggs, more meat, more cheese, less processed carbohydrate and sugary foods. And these are the ones that we know we want to avoid. The main ones, actually, I would always say to patients to get really good results would be bread, rice, pasta, and potatoes, because we know that cakes and scones and donuts and that sort of stuff are not good for us. There's no surprise with those foods. So obviously cut those out. The other ones that can be tricky for people to get their heads around, that kind of exist in two categories. They are a non-processed food, but they are also a deadly food if you have diabetes or any metabolic health dysfunction, are starchy vegetables and high sugar fruits. So below ground vegetables like potatoes and sweet potatoes, high sugar fruits like bananas and tropical fruits. And guys, if you can take that advice on board, I promise you'll get to a point at the end of kind of 4 or 5 months where you have lost loads of weight, you're feeling great, your energy is kind of, it's not that your energy is through the roof, and people will usually describe it, and I would have described it as, it's just steady. It's like a steady energy level. Excuse me. As opposed to kind of ups and downs all the time that you would have had before. I had a patient said to me before, God, I don't know, is it a coincidence? Sorry, last week he said, I don't know, is it a coincidence? But I always used to feel sleepy in the afternoon and I go for a sleep. I haven't done that now in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, that is definitely not a coincidence. Okay, so hopefully that's been helpful, guys. Oh, we do have a comment. Sorry, 1 second there now. Oh, hi, Anya. Anya Marie is saying, I completed 16-week program. I'm now on week 17. No cravings, weight loss, bloods are excellent, and I'm feeling great. Good for you and well done. I'm delighted, Anya. Well done. That's fantastic. Great work. Chloe's taking good care of you, obviously. That is magic. I love getting comments like that because you've no idea how profoundly transformational that's going to be for your health. Not only for putting your diabetes in remission and losing weight and feeling better, but preventing Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, cancers, high blood pressure, all of these things that we know are rooted in high blood sugar levels. So good for you, and I'm delighted. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I'll be back next week, and I will see you soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.